All right, good morning and welcome to everyone who is here. We are happy to see you again today. Today is our third meeting, and just like in the previous two sessions, we'll be taking presentations from our guest facilitators, and we'll also be accepting questions and contributions. Please do not wait for the presentations to finish before you bring in your questions. The questions can be posted in the chat box, and they can cover any topic at all related to what we are learning for the week. In this week's module, there are 4 lessons. The first 3 lessons are all related to the Research for Life content portal. So lesson 1 had to do with access to the unified content portal of Research for Life. In the lesson 2, we are introduced to how to search across the entire Research for Life program using the Salmon and Google Scholar search engines. And in the third lesson, we focus on citation databases. Then the 4th lesson is on copyright licensing and ethical considerations. Because as we interact with knowledge bases or databases of people's publications, we have an ethical responsibility to ensure that you respect the economic and legal rights of the owners of these publications and any other guidelines on the reuse of other people's data and research outputs. So we are going to begin today with a presentation from our first guest facilitator, Dr. Mrs. Teresa Edu. Many of us are already familiar with her because she opened this training for us on the 15th of last month. She is the university librarian for University of Health and Allied Sciences, and she is going to set the tone for today's interactions by taking us through an overview of all that we were studying on the 4th lesson, copyright, licensing, and ethical considerations. So I would like to welcome Dr. Mrs. Teresa Edu for the first presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred Haibo. This morning, I feel privileged to discuss copyright licensing and ethical consideration. I think that this is a topic that is of essence to all of us. And I think it is a very important topic to talk about. This is because all of us, especially for those of us who are into publishing and all, or even if you are not into publishing, every now and again we are either writing, we are discovering things and all that. And so issues of intellectual property, licensing, and other considerations are very, very important to ensure that we are protected, our intellectual property is protected. We would go through what intellectual property is. We would zero in on copyright, what is fair use, and then we'll talk about licensing, Creative Commons, public domain, and then we'll also talk about plagiarism. At the end of this discussion, we would get to know what copyright is and how to avoid the infringement of copyright. We would understand licensing. We would know the different regimes being used by publishers for our journal articles. And then we would also talk about plagiarism. Intellectual property, as defined by WIPO, that's the World Intellectual Property Organization, is the creation of the mind. And I know that all of us know that we have physical property, probably we have landed property, and we have other kinds of properties. These are properties we can see. But when we talk about intellectual property, it is a property that you may not necessarily see. And so it is a property that has come from your intellect. And it normally targets inventions, literary works, artistic designs, and things like that. And intellectual property rights, that is, I'm adding the rights, that is IPR, is normally aimed at striking the right balance between the interest of innovators and then the wider public interest. The innovator or the rights holder would have created an invention or would have made a publication. But this publication or this innovation does not belong to the person alone. It should be used by the wider public. But what intellectual property tries to do is to strike a certain kind of balance that would help both the innovator and then the wider public, so that they would foster an environment in which there will be creativity and then innovation can flourish. You can imagine if you have created something and people just take what you have created and use it without you benefiting from what you have created, would you be motivated to do it again? Definitely not. And so basically that is what intellectual property tries to do. We have what we call the Paris Convention and then the Berne Convention. These are basically, these were basically the times when IP was first recognized and then copyright was first recognized. Okay, now normally when you talk about intellectual property, a lot of times people use the phrase intellectual property and the word copyright interchangeably, but in actual fact, they cannot be used interchangeably. Copyright is just an aspect. It is just a branch of intellectual property. And so intellectual property has two branches. That is industrial property and then copyright. The industrial property covers patents, trademarks, industrial designs, and then geographical indications. And then copyright covers literary works, films, music, artistic works, and architectural design. And this is what we are interested in, especially for those of us in tertiary institutions, those of us who are publishing and all. This is the aspect of intellectual property that we are, that is of interest to us. The copyright is a legal term. And basically, what it refers to is to protect the rights of the creator. After you have created your work, when the work gets out into the public, anybody can pick it and use it. And sometimes people may even use it the way they want. But what copyright does is to protect the rights of the user, of the rights holder, so that people cannot pick the work and use it just the way they want it. And then the right to prepare derivatives out of the work they have done, the right to distribute copies of the work they have done, and then the right to perform and display the work publicly. Like I said, it is a subset of intellectual property. One of the rights is economic rights, which is given to the rights holder. The economic rights allows the rights holder to benefit financially from their works. And then we also have the moral rights. The moral rights being the right to claim ownership of the work you have done. Sometimes this is called the right of paternity or the right of attribution. And it gives you, as a rights holder, the right to object to any distortion or modification of the work you have done, or perhaps to prevent people from arrogating any derogatory action against any work you have done. What happens is that sometimes the economic rights may be transferred to maybe one or more copyright owners. So for instance, if I have published an article, I can give that right, that economic right, to the publisher. I can give that economic right to probably somebody who may want to pick a work I have done to create a play out of. But mostly the moral rights is not given to anyone. The moral rights of any work that is under copyright protection rests solely with the rights holder. When we talk about the copyrights, one would ask, is this something that lasts forever? If you put a copyright on your article, your literary work, or whatever you have invented, is this something that lasts forever? No, it does not. It does not last forever. In most countries, it is for the lifetime of the author plus about 50 to 70 years after the death of the author. And in Ghana here, it is 70 years. That is what is stated in our Act 690, that's in 2005. It states categorically that it lasts for the lifetime of the author plus another 70 years after the death of the author. In cases where the material has been published by 2 or more people, it is for the lifetime of the last author to die, plus the 70 years after. So if probably one author has died, it doesn't mean that the material is still not covered by copyright. It still is covered by copyright. And so until the very last author dies, plus 70 years afterwards, then you can say that the document or whatever it is may be in the public domain. Now, if you publish materials and they are not used, they will be of no consequence. And so materials we have published would also have to be used. And so in our law in Ghana, we have what we call the fair use. And actually the fair use is an international thing. The fair use permits the use of copyrighted works without necessarily seeking the permission or approval of the rights holder. And so there are many times when you are doing your article, you're doing your work, you would need to use, you're doing your research, you would need to use some material. Fair use says that you can use that material without necessarily seeking permission or the approval of the rights holder. But of course, what this also means is that you need to acknowledge the rights holder for whatever work you are using. Sometimes a rights holder would have a contract with the users of their material, and that contract may be covered by a license. And so that license would state categorically how the material is to be used or how the material is not to be used. The Research for Life program we are all enjoying today also has license agreements with various publishers and various eligible institutions. And I believe that that license is also has also been signed with UHAS, and I believe with all your other institutions as well. The agreement includes the terms of use, the copyright, fair use, and how the Research for Life materials are supposed to be used. Basically, librarians are supposed to be responsible for managing this license. And then libraries are also supposed to give guidance and training on how the resources and the rights of rights holders should be upheld. And I think that this is what this particular part of our discussion is about. We have what we call the Creative Commons. The Creative Commons is a set of various licenses, and this allows people to share their copyrighted work with others. But it also indicates how the work can be copied, how it can be edited, how it can be built upon, whilst still retaining the rights of the original owner of the work. And so we say that it is known as a some rights reserved license rather than all rights reserved license or all rights reserved approach. What this means is that the rights holder gives to others some rights to use their materials, but there are some ways in which some of these materials can be used. What happens is that some rights can be used will tell you how you can copy the material, how you can edit the material, how you can build upon the material and still acknowledge that the material does not belong to you. And so on this slide, we see some of the symbols which would let you know whether the material can be used in a particular way or cannot be used in a particular way. And these are the symbols. I'm sure that we have seen some of these symbols. For some, in some instances, the material cannot be used for commercial purposes. It would give you the right to share the material, but of course, you must also acknowledge that this material was picked here, and you must acknowledge the rights holder for the material. There is a website, that's the Creative Commons website, where we can choose licenses that may be relevant to our various situations. And that's the creativecommons.org/choose. And so if you go there, you do a few, you answer a few questions, and it will take you to the license, and then you can pick it and use it. Let me jump quickly to public domain. One of the things that we should know is that although there are some restrictions on the use of some materials, after a while, some materials go into what we call the public domain. And so if a material is in the public domain, it is free for use. You do not need any permission from the rights holder before you can use this material. However, even in this instance, you still need to acknowledge the rights holder when you're using his or her material. Normally, materials may get into the public domain probably after the 70 years after the death of the 70 years after the death of the rights holder, or probably the rights holder deliberately decides that this material I want to put into the public domain. Or probably you have a material that does not have a copyright cover. You have not deliberately gone through the Copyright Act, gone through getting your material covered by copyright. And so when that happens, the document would get into the public domain. But of course, the fact that the document is in the public domain does not mean that you should use it without acknowledging the source of the document. I want to talk briefly, before I talk about plagiarism, just briefly about limitations and exceptions. And the limitations and exceptions are rights that, if you like, put a restriction on the rights holder. Although the rights holder has all the flexibility or has a right over the material, the limitations and exceptions enable the creators to access their material and then also to get other people to use the material and then build upon the material. Now, let me talk briefly. We do not have so much time. I want to talk briefly about plagiarism. It is the act of using someone else's material, words, ideas, without clearly citing the source of your information. And it is indicated here that this may be intentional or may be unintentional. And so if you are doing your research and then you pick a material and you do not indicate where that material is coming from, then you are plagiarizing. And we all know of people who have plagiarized some work and they have either lost their jobs or probably a degree they have earned may have been taken away from them. And we have had several cases like that. And so plagiarism is something that is very grave, especially in academic settings. It is something that is very grave. We have various types of plagiarism. Sometimes you pick somebody's sentence and then you make it appear that it is your own sentence. I did this. And so when that happens, you are called a thief. You are stealing. And then sometimes we do what we call patchwork. We have what we call copy and paste. And so you copy material from various documents here and there, and then you paste them, patch them together to appear as something that is yours. That is also another form of plagiarism. And then sometimes we take somebody's words and then we change the words and use them. In fact, in whichever way we do it, it is plagiarism. And we have what we call the self-plagiarism. You know, you may have published your own work, and then you think that because this work is mine, I can take as much of it as possible. That is also not accepted. Even after you have published your own work, if you want to pick something out of the work you have published, you need to cite yourself so that you will not be charged with plagiarism or self-plagiarism. And so we have various softwares that check plagiarism. I think Turnitin is the most common for us. We have Grammarly, we have Viper. Some are free, some are not free. They would come at a cost. But whatever it is good to pass our materials through a plagiarism software to see how much of somebody else's material we may have copied. It helps us, especially to either acknowledge the people whose works we may have picked, or to change whatever we may have done so that we do not fall foul of the law. And so basically, this is it. This is copyright. I think that I'll pause here because I think we would have a lot of questions. So I'll pause here, and then as the questions come, we will do further discussions. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Doc. That was a great presentation, particularly getting the understanding that I can plagiarize myself. I believe that particularly in the academic setting, many of us students may have plagiarized ourselves several times. Because once you have done a good assignment, it's a template to use to do other similar works. Please, the floor is open for your questions. You can either type them in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. Dr. Anthony Da, kindly unmute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good morning. I thank the presenter for the excellent presentation. I want to find out, in doing plagiarism test, the turn in out, you notice that the citation or the phrases or sentences that you cited are all picked during the test. And
Yes.
according to your explanation, plagiarism is where you cite somebody's work without acknowledging the person. So I want to understand very well, because in school at Ghana College, when they do the test, all the quotations and then the phrases that you cited were counted, and then they sum them up, and they will tell you that similarity is above 25. Therefore, you failed the test. Can you explain that aspect for me, please?
You know, as much as you acknowledge your source, it is also not allowed to go word for word for a lot of the things that you acknowledge. Yes, you may have acknowledged them all right, but it is not right for you to go word for word. And so in some instances, all you need to do is to pick up the idea and then write whatever it is in your own words. And so if your similarity index comes and you realize that it is very high, what you need to do is, what am I trying to say in this particular part of this message? And so you take it and then write it in your own words, but you still have to acknowledge the fact that the original idea of what you are writing was picked from so and so, Edu, Etal, or whatever. And so, yes, the similarity index may come all right. It will show you all the various places where you pick material from. What we are saying is that you do not have to let your whole work be copied from people and then you acknowledge all of them. Then in that case, what have you done? You haven't done any work. You just pick people's works here and there, and then you acknowledge them. I don't know if I'm clear.
Yes, Doc.
Well,
I am.
Yeah.
Dr. Da. Yes. So I'm very happy about the concluding part, but I think if I understood Dr. Da, his concern was about why the system still picks those elements which were adequately cited.
Acknowledged.
Yes.
Yes, the system will pick it because these are materials that are in the system.
Yes.
So, in fact, even your own self, that's where there's the issue of self-plagiarism. Your own material, when you copy the material, you will see that it has been indicated by the Similarity Index. And so for as long as the documents you picked some from online, you picked some from various websites and here and there, for as long as those documents are in the system, and when I talk about the system, I'm talking about the internet world. That's what we are dealing with now. And so what the plagiarism software does is it runs through the whole of the internet world to look for information. Sometimes you'll be surprised, something you may have indicated and you think, oh, nobody would know that I paid this from somewhere. The plagiarism software will bring it out for you to see. And I'm sure all of us would have experienced this one way or the other, you know, so that is it. It will by all means show it. And then I know that the various authorities know this. That is why we talk about the level of similarity. So, for instance, by all means, there would be some kind of a similarity, but that similarity should not exceed a certain percentage. And so, for various universities, probably you would have up to probably 20%, 25%, 30%, which may be acceptable. But beyond that, it is not acceptable.
Yes, thanks a lot, Doc. I think that's a great answer. I was seeing the dynamics, the fact that in the first response, you indicated that, of course, though we have acknowledged whatever we picked from other sources, the fact is that you cannot write any piece and the entire piece will be borrowed ideas from everybody else, and it's like you yourself are not contributing anything.
Exactly.
Exactly. So despite having acknowledged the sources as required, per whatever citation style, still you will be picked up for similarity. So I think with the last response, that actually answers the total question of why were the acknowledged sources picked up. Yes, they were picked up, but the institution itself has an ethics board that sets the limits. So the software simply indicates to you how similar your work is with other works. Then it is dependent on your institution to determine what level of similarity is tolerable. So like she has said, if maybe UHA says that we will not accept similarity of above 20%, then that is it. It means you have to go back and work. So I think that's a great thing because it's something that I've had a lot of students also asking, and that is a very gray area for so many people. So it is just a similarity index. It's simply telling you your work looks very much like other works to this degree. So the fact is, it's a similarity score. So the ethics board is the one that decides the tolerable threshold beyond which you may be asked to maybe rework or something. Rejoice.
Hello. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay. I don't know whether I missed this part of the lecture, but I would like to find regards to the copyright. Is it possible for a copyright to be in more than one person's name?
Can you raise your voice a little, Rejoice?
Okay. Hello. Is it
Yes,
better?
just
Okay. So I was asking, is it possible for a copyright to be in more than one person's name, please?
yes, please. Yes, it's possible. In fact, I mentioned that where the copyrighted material is in the name of two or more people, all of them get the same protection. And so, for instance, Rejoice, if you and I have written a book together, after I have passed on and you are still alive, you still have a right to the material until you also pass on, and then plus 70 years after your death.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. It's clear now.
All right, Dominic, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to contribute to Dr. Das comment.
Okay.
But I think it's been answered already, except to say that we should understand that the app is a similarity checker. So once it finds a similar phrase, sentence, it is going to tell you this particular sentence is similar to something elsewhere. Again, your institutional review board or whoever manages the similarity platform, anything or whatever, has an administrative right to set or define the parameters that they expect from their users. For instance, they may tell the system to include even sentences in quotation marks. When they exclude it, Turnitin will not underline it. When they don't, so all these are institutional dependent. The institutions will decide what we want from our users. And again, as Dr. Edu indicated, the fact that Turnitin says that your index is 17% doesn't make it right or wrong. It depends on what the institution is looking for. If the institution thinks that, and for us, and depending on the area we find ourselves, most of our literature is novel or something, so let's set it at this threshold. That is good for the institution. It doesn't cut across every institution. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dominic, for the additions. Is that Dr. Osafo? I'm seeing a raised hand. Osafo?
Yes, please.
Yes,
good
please.
Morning.
Right. Good morning.
So I just wanted to get this clarification from Dr. Edu, the difference between fair use and the public domain. They appeared kind of pretty similar to me. So if Dr. Edu could, is there a difference in the first place? And if there is, the fair use and then the public domain. Thank you.
Yes, there's a difference. The fair use is giving the right to users to use materials that are copyrighted without necessarily acknowledging, without necessarily seeking permission from the rights holder. But you would still have to acknowledge the rights holder. So that is fair use. But public domain is when a document is open for use for all.
Okay.
And that document is in the public, if you like. However, you still need to acknowledge these materials. Although they may not be covered by copyright, you still need to acknowledge them. Otherwise, you still would be plagiarizing, because there are some materials, like I indicated to you, that some materials get into the public domain because the authors decided that they want their materials to be in the public domain. But remember, their names would still be attached to those materials. And so for as long as their names is attached to those materials, then you are supposed to acknowledge them, although it would be in the public domain. You know that there are some materials that we use sometimes and then we indicate anonymous.
That's right.
We know that. Yes, it is anonymous. You do not know, you may not even know where the material is coming from, so it is anonymous. But the material does not belong to you. It is the public domain, but it's not yours. So you still need to acknowledge it. I don't know if this is clear.
Yes, it's very clear. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I've got some posts in the chat box. The first one is from Henry. Henry is asking, if I cite the source, can I still be accused of plagiarism?
If you cite the source, you have not plagiarized. The important thing is to cite the source. So if you have cited your source, you are telling people that this thing does not belong to me. I took it from Fred. So that is not plagiarism.
Thank you. There's another one.
Hello, Fred.
Yes, hello.
May I contribute to what Doc just said?
Yes, Dominic.
Yes, so to avoid being plagiarized, we are advised to actually acknowledge our sources. But in doing so, we should also be careful to be very diligent. For instance, citation and the references. For instance, if your reference list is misleading, if your reference list is incomplete, you could be cited, even though you have acknowledged the source, but you are misleading your audience. Even though you have acknowledged the source, your reference is incomplete. So it becomes very difficult for anyone to trace the material. So Doctor is very right, except that we ought to be very diligent.
Yes, thank you very much. So the key word here is that when we say we are citing a source or acknowledging a source, the acknowledgement is not just what you indicate in the text. The in-text marker there is only holding a place for your full description at the tail end of the work. And so if you have put an indication inside the work, let's say WHO 2000, then in the reference list, there's no WHO. I think that's what Dominic is trying to draw attention to.
Yes, that's one scenario. And the other scenario is that someone will say, HIBO 2017, will reference it as well, except that there's no document written by HIBO. This is an imaginative document coming from the author just to beat the system. Let's create a document
it's not traceable.
Yes.
Yes, so that can be dangerous. So you don't create your own imaginary documents inside them. Okay, yeah. So Henry, I think the question is answered that if you properly cite, I think that word should come properly. If you properly cite your sources, then you shouldn't be accused of plagiarism. But if you improperly or insufficiently cite, then you can still have questions hanging around your neck.
And Fred, let me put this across so that maybe you all deliberate on this.
Yes.
I read somewhere that you may cite, except that maybe the quantum of your citation, quantum of your quotation, you have copied about a whole page or 2 pages from a document, even though you have cited, it is still something else.
No, that is not acceptable.
Yes, Doctor earlier indicated that in that case, what are you also adding to the knowledge you are bringing out?
In fact, even in instances where you are making photocopies, we didn't go into too much detail about copying materials. You are not supposed to copy more than 10% of a document. But we have instances where people photocopy whole books, and these are things that are not acceptable. Yeah.
Wow, that is great.
May I share this experience?
Yes.
I shared what Doctor said, and students were telling me in that case, I will go and just photocopy 10%, the required 10%. Then my colleague will go and copy another 10%. So at the end of the day, we'll still get the book anyway. Doc, your view.
No, but why would you want to do? You see, one of the things that came to my attention in one of the researches is we as students, we talk like this. We think that we can copy material. But then when you sit down and you know the amount of work that is put into research for someone to come up with an article or even come up with a book, then you see how painful it is when people pick your document and you do not get any economic benefit from your hard work. And then one of the students I interacted with said, one day he also hopes to be a lecturer. And so he's going to make sure that what I am trying to promote would be something that would come to pass because he doesn't want his work to be taken for granted. And so today you will get 10%, 10%, 10%. Then tomorrow you become a big person. You are able to write books. The books you write, are people going to buy them? No, they won't. Because they will also take 10%, 10%, 10%. So what did you gain? Did you go or did you come? As we would say. So these are little things we should be looking at. And especially if we are in a position to buy books, I think we should, because a lot goes into publishing, a lot goes into intellectual property. Let me just use the word broadly. A lot goes into it. And so if people have spent their time, and it's not only time, we also spend our resources to come up with some of these things. And so we should encourage people to get rights holders to also benefit from their hard-earned property. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Doc. And I think that the discussion brings me to something else that was already discussed during the presentation. So in the case that we are citing, okay, where we are talking about students, all right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we are talking about academic use. I'm not sure the students have any intention of benefiting economically from the work. Maybe they simply needed that book or a chapter to complete an assignment or whatever. Mm-hmm. Won't that come under fair use, where, let's say, the book actually is not there? Maybe the entire university library has just one copy. There are 300 students. And they all need this material. It's not for any economic benefit. They just want to use it for an academic work.
Yes, you want to use it for academic work. Yes, you sure go ahead and use it for academic work. It comes under fair use. It comes under limitations and exceptions in the copyright law.
Yes.
And so, although the rights holder has a right to the materials, there are some limitations and there are some exceptions. Some of the exceptions are when people are using it for academic purposes. And one scholar would say that there's nothing like new knowledge in this whole world. There's nothing like new knowledge. All the knowledge we have are things that people have already propounded, and then we just take it and then we, I don't know whether to say twist or adjust and adapt and change it, and then it becomes ours. And so for us to have this kind of continuity, this kind of innovation going on, yes, the limitations and exceptions plus the fair use are very important. And so we have the rights holder having a right to their material, but they do not have absolute rights to that material. In any case, whatever material they have, they also pick portions of it from somewhere else. And that is how the world goes. Otherwise there will be no innovation, there will be no creation. But these things have been put in place so that we can spare people to create. If I know that if I create, if I write, if I make plays, I write manuscripts and things like that, I can gain something from it. I'll be motivated to do it. And I'll be motivated to be more innovative in the way I do things. But if there's no motivation to do that, then why should I? You just write something and somebody picks it and you don't gain anything from it. So that's the whole idea. The idea is that we want people to be spurred on to create and be more innovative for the benefit of mankind.
Yes, thanks a lot, Doc. So I think, yes.
And to add to what Doc had just said, the Copyright Act 690/2005 actually mandates libraries to make copies of rare materials for academic purpose, which we will call the fair use. So it does. And to also add to the issue of students are using it, they may not have any intention. So we are teaching our students to be ethical in whatever endeavor, academic endeavor they pursue. And so it should start from level 100. Tomorrow, they may become prominent people, and some people will want to start digging issues around them. Who knows what somebody may find? So issues of ethics, issues of, yes, ethical issues regarding information use shouldn't start at a point when we have become prominent. It should start from the beginning.
Yes, that's excellent. And I saw Barbara's hand up. Barbara.
Yes, I think that's what
as asked concerning using documents or citing documents, photocopying for academic purposes by students.
Okay.
So I think the same thing Dominic, mentioned, or trying to find out Doc's view on that.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So I think that has been explained already.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Doc, there are some other posts. Yes, there are three contributions. So it appears that the similarity test does not actually assess plagiarism. My concern is that it does not exactly address plagiarism. Okay, and so I believe the similarity test result is not operator dependent. So that is about the softwares, the Turnitin, the Viper, White Smoke, those groups of apps. So I think that is a fair assessment, because what I think from what we are discussing, plagiarism as a concept is not something that a piece of software can determine. It's all about institutional calibrations. And so I think with the examples given in the previous discussion, the rules are clear that one, when you use someone's intellectual property, acknowledge them. So once you have done that appropriately, I think that the scholarly institution will not say you have plagiarized. But as explained, the software that we are discussing as a help in detecting plagiarisms are all similarity index markers. So yes, you are right, Doctor. They simply tell you how similar or to what degree your work is similar to other works, but they cannot really pass judgment whether you have plagiarized. It will depend on your institutional review board for the ethics of research to actually pass that judgment. And that is why they are the ones that really set the parameters and the threshold for what constitutes too much of similarity or plagiarism.
Fred.
But you see, Fred, the issue is, I agree with all that you have said.
Yes.
But you see, when you go beyond a certain threshold,
yes,
then the work will be labeled as a plagiarized work.
Okay.
Because if all that you have written are words and phrases and ideas and whatever from other people, like I said earlier on, then what have you contributed to it? Nothing. So that your work would be a plagiarized work. And so what the similarity checker really does, or the plagiarism software really does, is to tell us the extent to which you have picked other people's works.
Yeah.
And that is why the authorities, that's the ethics boards and all, would give a certain percentage that you should not cross.
Yeah.
You cannot say you would also get a material that does not have ideas and whatever from other places, because like I said earlier on, there's no new knowledge under the sun. Everything we are doing now are things that have been done already. People have already done them. And when you start reading back into the 16th century or whatever, you see that all these things are things that are there all over again. But the bottom line is that at least you are contributing something small to knowledge. So what is the small you are contributing to knowledge?
Mm-hmm.
And that is what the similarity index or the similarity checker is there to do, to indicate the extent to which you have picked on other people's own and what is left of yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Doc. So something just crossed my mind when you were indicating that clarification. Is that what we call originality?
Yes, originality, yes.
Good.
Yes, that is what is called originality. And so when you're doing your proposals for probably either your PhD work or MPhil or whatever, they would ask that what are you bringing on board? And that is something that almost all our supervisors would ask you, what is the originality of your work? Yes, this person has said this person has said that, this person. So you do all the quotations and the citations here and there. What about you? What are you also saying?
Yeah.
Fred.
Hello.
Briefly, so this issue of plagiarism, I think, has two phases. Okay. The quantitative aspect, which the software tries to do for us.
Okay.
And then the qualitative aspect, which the institution will, or the reviewer or the journal editor, whoever, will also have to add the human face to it.
Okay. The human face.
Yes, human face, because like we have indicated, you will get a work and then this document is submitted as a partial fulfillment of whatever. Okay. And then 1018 will underline it. It will increase your similarity index. So the human face here is the reviewer or the examiner should know that thousands of such materials are in the system with this phrase. Okay. Are you getting the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yes. So the software is just to tell us this is similar to this. And it does it quantitatively for us. Then qualitatively, the examination board, the reviewer, the editor has to look at some of these things.
Oh, okay. I get the picture. Hello, Amy.
Yeah, this is Amy.
Yes.
I agree with Dominic because even your supervisor's name will be underlined.
Yes.
Even your own name, some part of it will be underlined if you have the same Amy somewhere. So the qualitative aspect is what Dominic is talking about, that the reviewer board will sit and look at it. Even your table of contents, there are some aspects of it that others have done, as Dr. Teresa Edu has already said.
Yeah.
And I think the similarity checker, they normally exclude the references because others they've also referenced similar books or articles. So it depends on the board. When they see it, they look at the qualitative aspect, and the similarity checker also look at the quantitative aspect. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. Today I'm enjoying the discussion. Doc, there's another question here for you. This is from Henry again. He says, do you recommend running research papers through a plagiarism checker software before finally submitting to the institutional plagiarism software?
Yes, I think it will be in your interest to do that. Even the various articles that we write here and there, it's good to put them through a plagiarism checker. It is in your own interest because you see, I don't think that any one of us just sits down and everything we ever write come just on top of our minds. No, by all means, you would have read something somewhere, you would have picked something from somewhere and all that. And so when you do that, it would help you to re-look at what you have done. And then probably make the necessary adjustments. It is in your interest to do that. I don't know if it's answered.
Fred, I think perfectly, Doc is right. When you are submitting an article for journal publication and you do the test yourself before submitting, you are likely to overcome what they call the desktop rejection. if your paper is highly plagiarized, the editor is not going to send it for review.
At all.
Peer review at all. So if you do the test before sending it, you save yourself a lot of stress.
Oh, okay. I think the reason why that question was asked is that sometimes we hear people say that if you pass your work through the checker, it indexes your work or it stores your work.
No,
and so it means that when a second run will pick the first one as if it is plagiarized work. I think that is the reason why the person is asking.
No,
Okay.
when that happens, then it means that you haven't done the settings right.
Okay.
If the settings are right, that will not happen. I remember that with one of my works that I checked like that, the first index that came was about, I think, 25% or something. And I wanted to beat it down to 20%. And so I worked on it again. And then I put it through the system. What had happened was that the system had already picked the first one I had sent. So when I put the second one in, it was almost 100%. You know, it was almost 100%. And at that time, I didn't understand what was going on, and I became very frustrated. But when I understood it and then I had the system reset, then I was okay. So you should know the system that you're using to do the checking of your manuscript. If it is well set, you can put it in a couple of times, there will be no problem.
Oh, okay, Henry.
And please,
yeah, Amy.
And please, apart from the setting, you should know which plagiarism checker you should use. You should avoid using the free ones and try and use the subscribed ones. Your university or your institution can have some that you can use, which is registered in the institution's name, and you also have access to it. It's better, or you can even buy. It's better than using the free ones. The free ones will make the plagiarism almost 100% when you go to use almost the same thing as others. Thank you.
You see, what happens with some of the free ones is you do not have the opportunity to do the settings by yourself.
Yeah.
But for instance, if you use Turnitin, and this one I'm talking, the experience I just gave you of mine was actually with Turnitin. You know, the only thing is that the settings was done such that because the thing had already passed through, it was seeing it as a plagiarized work. You know, you can do all the various settings yourself if you have control over it. And that's why, but of course, these are very expensive, and we should also
very
add that in
expensive.
mind.
So, Fred, Emmy said we should be buying them. Interesting. First, I want to encourage that we should invest in information resources. Doc was advocating that we should be buying books. It's a perfect thing. Let's have libraries in our homes. The more expensive ones, the libraries will come in with their subscriptions so that they cover us there. Amy, Turnitin, Authenticate is very expensive.
But the institutions have. Institutions have.
We should advocate. We should advocate when we have the opportunity. We should get our institutions to subscribe to them for us.
Okay, so I like that word, advocate. I think advocacy is one of the main topics we are going to be treating in this course. And I'm happy that every school at UHAS is represented here. The institutes are also represented. We'll see how we'll work together with faculty to advocate that UHAS will procure Turnitin for us. It's really a great idea. All right, I can see Lenny has joined. And he says he's ready.
I'm almost ready. I have to use my headset. Last thing to do.
All right, Lenny. So let me take the last question on the previous presentation from Edem at Kako. Edem.
Hello. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Edem.
Doc was saying that in presenting our theses and proposals for approval, most often than not, we are asked about what new knowledge we are bringing on board. But at the same time, she also said that there is nothing new on this earth. that is being done. So how can you bring something new on board or add something to something that is already existing? Is it that you are trying to replicate whatever somebody has done in a different part of the world to see whether you get the same result or not? Thank you.
No, not necessarily. Yes, if I say there's nothing new under the sun, a lot of the times, we are all researchers. You know that a lot of the things that we pick are things we have picked from books and all that, but you have your own mind. You have a mind of your own, and you have thoughts as to why something should be something, or why or how a particular problem can be solved. You have your own mind on those things. Those are the originalities. This is the way these people are doing it. And so you have these. Those are old knowledge. But your new knowledge is, I think if this is handled this way, it will make it better. That is your new knowledge. And that is what will be required of us when we are coming out with any material or any research.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Doc. Yes, please.
Let me add this.
Yes, please, one contribution. I want to give an example. First of all, I like Google Scholar's slogan. It says, "Stand on the shoulders of giants." I think that is exactly what the picture is. That, of course, there's a lot of information that you can leverage in order to see new insights. Okay, so not as if you are bringing a totally new thing that is never heard of, but maybe tweaking what is already known to discover something new that is more applicable to the situation. I remember when COVID started, that there were proposals from our biomedical scientists that there were already some equipment that were procured during the Ebola outbreak, okay, for some kind of work. And then the biotech guys were suggesting, with their knowledge of what happened with Ebola, that those same systems could be recalibrated to deal with the coronavirus. You see, so I think that practical example is what the issue of your originality, or what you are bringing on board based on what is already existing knowledge, is. That is the way I understand it. I may be wrong. Dominic, you wanted to add something?
So just to add to what you've said, you and Doc had said already. So two things. First, even when you are doing a literature review, aside bringing on board what others have said, what is your view? How are you integrating that into your work?
Yeah.
That is one way to go about it. At the end of your research, you are going to come out with your findings, which may be peculiar to your environment and will be quite new. And in writing your findings, everybody can do research and write findings, but because I am a librarian, what is my take or my view on the findings that are coming up? So during the discussion session, the study is saying that maybe people who sit for a long hours during studies in the library may have problem with their spines and all that. As a librarian, what is my take on that? Otherwise, a lab scientist could do the same study. Okay. So this is where your profession and your experience will come on bear. And this is where you are able to come out with something original and different from what is existing already.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I think this discussion must continue. Please remember the channel. It is channel number 06, Intellectual Property. All right. So let the questions go there on the Microsoft Teams tool that we are using, channel 06, Intellectual Property. At this very moment, I want to thank Dr. Edu so much for holding the fort to this point. Don't worry, she's a university librarian. So if you have more questions that you want to see her personally about, you can also walk up to her office and have more discussions with her. If you have the power to lobby and advocate, please get in touch and let's see how we work together to see if we can procure such a system for the university. I would like at this point to introduce our next guest. He's not really a guest, he's a family member now because we have met him once already. You're going to meet him again a number of times before we close this course, learning. He is going to take us through the first two lessons and also demonstrate how these are going to be working with our login onto the Research for Life platform. So he's going to take us through the unified content portal and also how to search across the whole of Research for Life using Salmon and Google Scholar.